very exciting talk that we have today with Monsi Roman from Marshall Space Flight Center. And Monsi, as you know, we had a really great event just happening this Saturday. So after you get done with your awesome presentation that you have in store for us today, we'll talk a little about the presentation, the questions we have for you from NASA, and the great event that happened this past Saturday. For those that might not have seen it, we'll talk a little bit about it and the significance on it. So welcome again. Thank you for joining us today. And we would love to see your presentation.
So good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. And can you see my presentation in the back?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you, definitely Rafaela, to meet Raul, who's a buddy from Puerto Rico there, and to have the opportunity to share my experience as a Puerto Rican, as a Hispanic, as a scientist, as a NASA employee, and that gets to do all kinds of really cool stuff. So anyway, thank you for the invitation, and let me take you through a little bit of a history of where I come from, and maybe I can move there we go. So like I said, I was born in Puerto Rico. I went to the schools, in the public schools in the island. I grew up in Guaynabo, for those of you that knows about where Guaynabo is in the north part of the island. Had the amazing opportunity to go to the University of Puerto Rico and get my degree, my bachelor's degree in biology from the University of Puerto Rico. I always have known that I wanted to be a biologist. I remember sixth grade. I remember even before sixth grade thinking, biology is what really, everything I like is around biology. Had no clue what I was going to do with biology. But I knew that's what the area that really, really interested me. I also knew that I didn't want to be a doctor. So even though I started in pre-med at the University of Puerto Rico with the other pre-med students, pretty much all my friends from college are doctors. I had the amazing opportunity to meet a professor that was there in sabbatical from Berkeley, that his degree was in microbiology. And he became an amazing mentor. And thanks to him, I started a journey that I have loved ever since in microbiology. I moved, after I graduated from the university, I moved to Huntsville, Alabama. It's very, very close to Tennessee, in the top part of Alabama, for those of you who do not know where Huntsville is. It's called the Rocket City. Huntsville has the opportunity to have hosted the engineers that designed the rockets that took us to the moon in the 1960s. So the center the Marshall Space Flight Center has a rich history of propulsion and literally building rockets. So everywhere you come, if you ever come to Huntsville, you're going to see a lot of rockets around because of that very rich history. And then I did my master's in microbiology at the University of Alabama in Huntsville when I came in. I actually went to do my master's there many years ago. Okay, for you guys need to understand that when I did my master's, there was no computers, there were no personal computers. So actually my thesis was actually typed. There was no Word documents back then. It's a shame. It's so much easier now. So I went to do my master's with I knew some English, but not a lot. So I learned a lot in a very hard way. English was not my first language when I came to the States. So I had to do my master's in microbiology. At the same time, I was learning the language and the Southern English, which became even more important to learn if you wanted to survive around here. So a little bit about me. I love witches, and I love Disney, and I love microorganisms, and they're all connected one way or the other. If you look at the Disney movies, usually the witches are the ones in the laboratories. Of course, they're doing sometimes not many fun things like poisoning apples and such, but nevertheless, they're the ones with the cauldrons and test tubes and such. So from forever, I had loved them, the good witches, by the way. And my family, it's a space family, believe it or not. Here we are on Mars. This was our Christmas picture 2 years ago. I have 3 boys and 2 daughter-in-laws. And my husband, Jose, he's an engineer at NASA, and he's the reason I am in Huntsville. And my boys, all of the people you see in that picture have STEM backgrounds. So I have been very blessed. And that's very unusual because in my family, I was the first scientist. Nobody understood why I like science because that was not something that anybody talked about. This is my dog, Luna. She's an Australian Shepherd, a spoiled, rotten dog that you're going to hear barking at some point throughout this, I'm sure. And I started working at NASA pretty close to the time I graduated with my master's. And this picture is super important to me, and it's going to take more significance now that we are starting to fly again, because next to me is the Atlantis during getting ready to fly for the very last time, the shuttle. So, and so that means that was 9 years ago, because 9 years ago was the last time we flew a space shuttle in U.S. land, and everybody, I hope, got the opportunity to see the amazing launch of SpaceX from Cape Canaveral back in on Saturday. So when I started working at NASA in 1989, the missions that we were flying were 14-day missions, and they were, we would go to space or wherever we were going for 14 days, came back, and everything inside the space shuttle got cleaned and get ready to come back to for the next mission. So there was nothing regenerable, meaning everything was pretty much brand new inside for the life support systems in the shuttle at that time. So I was hired to work with a team of people to do what we called station. We didn't know back then it was going to be the International Space Station, but from going only for 14 days to keep people alive for from 6 months to a year, that became a really, really hard. We never thought we could do it. Basically, it was like a dream. We came in and they told us what you're going to do is keep people alive, water and air systems, from 6 to a year, and 6 months to a year, and that was such an interesting journey. So one of the first things we looked at for inspiration was how Earth actually recycles water and air, and a lot of the systems in station are inspired by those systems that we see currently on Earth. So in station and in any space mission, especially from now on, you're going to see that we are one of the best recyclers, and we are very invested in repurposing and reusing also, because it's a good thing, it's the right thing to do to begin with, but in addition to that, it's basically as important as to keep the people alive. So if we want to take enough resources with us, but not too many where we cannot have our missions, we have to recycle. So becomes extremely important. And so it's a topic that I'll be happy to talk to you, because it's dear to me and to all our missions that we're doing. And that means sometimes that we recycle the water, including urine. So for pretty much the whole time that I was working in the life support system in NASA, part of our task was to make sure that the recycled water was safe for the crew to drink. And so we went from 6 missions to, of course, I hope everybody have heard the year in space that astronaut Scott Kelly did. And during that time, he drank 730 liters of recycled sweat and urine, and very safely. And for those of you that thinks that's super extremely nasty, I just want to share some thoughts with each of you. Remember the little recycling earth on top that says, that we are doing our systems similar to what Earth is doing in smaller scale? You are drinking recycled urine too. The astronauts are drinking recycled urine from people they know. You're drinking recycled urine from people you have no clue. And dogs and cows and horses and whatever goes to the river close to where the water comes to your house. So that's my sunshine thought for you. And then we're starting to move toward going back to the moon, and eventually going to Mars and having humans on the surface of Mars, which will be super cool. So all the missions, the journey has been an amazing journey from, a few days. And even before I started, of course, before the shuttle, there were even smaller missions, 7 days and such, all the way to now talking about staying for up to 3 years. That's an amazing thing. So I started as a microbiologist, as I was part of the group that designed the water and air systems of the space station. And a lot of the things that we did were making sure those systems were safe, biologically and chemically. My job was to make sure that microbiologically they were clean. So we did a lot of surface air and water analysis, and you can see in the picture some of the ways we collected samples. And I got to do that. I had the pleasure and the honor to do that for very many years, the designing of those systems, and then later on helping with the monitoring, even though I, of course, was not doing the monitoring myself, or was no longer in the lab, as the picture on the bottom left kind of shows. As the years went by, I did more management work and less laboratory work, but laboratory still calls me. Some of the systems that we currently have in the station monitor airs and the water and the surfaces for the astronauts as often as they need to. We share the station with an international crew and a Russian side. It's an amazing opportunity to think of station as an international collaboration of many nations. And I think that's what gives us all hope that, the future is amazing as we move toward more to space, and the learning that happens in station, it's again international too. There's a lot of learning cultures, and when we have meetings with all the international partners in microbiology, when I was part of the microbiology group, it was interesting to see the different cultures. Japanese very quiet for the most part, and then the French and the Russians very very talkative, and us, the US side, was there. It was an amazing opportunity, it really was. So it's not only an opportunity to learn about technology, an opportunity to flex your muscles of thinking outside of the box, doing things that have never been done before, and being sure that you keep that thought in your mind that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you recover and continue. You learn from those, and also the opportunity to learn about the culture and food. I mean, some of the things that you might not think we had to learn about was the fact that one of our first astronauts in the Mir, which was the first times we started going to the Russian space station, actually flooded the urine systems of the Russians because they were not designed for as much water as the Americans drink. The Russians do not drink as much water as the US people drink. So some of the things we had to learn the hard way was we had to accommodate in our designs different types of, different amounts of urine, different amounts of pretty much everything, chemicals. We are all a biofactory of chemicals that and release them in different ways. So it depends what you're eating, what your medicines you're taking. All that goes into the airs, and as the engineers and scientists of the life support systems, all that needs to be taken in consideration. So it's an amazing way to learn about people and everything around people. So got the opportunity to do that for 25 years. Adore that job. Was asked to pick up a different program about 5 years ago. It's called Centennial Challenges. And for a while, I thought I will hate this program. I'm not sure why they're asking me to do this. This is about games. And but it was the right thing for me to do. It was time for me to move and use my my skills in a different way. And so after 2 and 3 no's, I cannot do this, I went ahead and took it over and have never looked back. Adore this program too, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Centennial Challenges comes from it is called Centennial because it was a celebration of the 100 years of the flight of the Wright brothers. That's how this program started. This one started in 2005. The Centennial celebration was in 2003. First thing to learn, government takes forever to start a program. So they started in 2003, first competition was in 2005. So Centennial basically is a way of inviting the public. So now we're working with the public outside of NASA to come in, learn about what technology gaps we have, and help us solve those very hard issues. And so Centennial is part of a group of prizes and challenges that NASA runs. So there's all kinds of different ones, and I would like to invite you to be curious about what they are under the NASA Solve banner. And so Centennial is the biggest. It was the first and the biggest. So we have multi-million-dollar prizes. But then there's other ones. There's one internal to NASA, which is NASA at Work, but the other ones are open to you guys. So if you go to the NASA Solve website, you're going to find citizen science competitions or just involvement in, can you let me know when you see a star in whatever it is, Space Apps is a competition, it's international competition, an opportunity for everybody to participate all over the world, and it's fairly low bar, so please look at those and be curious about it and see how you can contribute to the NASA technology development through any of those as possible. So talk to you about Centennial Challenges. So the current challenges that we have open are interesting. So the title of my presentation talks about from microorganisms to houses on Mars. And I'm going to get the opportunity to show you a few of the designs that we were able to collect as part of the 3D printed habitat challenge that we completed back in May last year. It was an opportunity for the public to come and show us what they think a house on Mars looks like, and then actually going ahead and printing, what they thought it looked like. And that was an incredible opportunity. It was an over $3 million competition. The companies that won, and even the companies that didn't win, the companies that participated, they're doing amazing things right now, including some of the companies are 3D printed houses for the homeless in Austin. There's a few of them that have come up together. And you guys in Texas, if you can have the opportunity to go see those houses, the company is called Icon. You can get in their website. They're amazing. Icon also have joined NASA and another company, and they're looking at building houses for Native Americans. And by the way, Icon is actually building houses in Mexico too. And so it is an incredible opportunity. So I very quickly understood that as part of managing this program, we have the opportunity to help push the NASA missions, because there's things that you're about to hear that we need help from the public, because even as smart as the scientists and engineers that we have at NASA, we can't think of all the solutions. And that's where we are opening the doors for the public to help us with that. But more importantly than that is a lot of these solutions have amazing opportunities to improve the life on Earth. And so 3D Printed Hub has been an incredible one to help us with that. And so some of those companies are also now working with us to start looking at how we're going to build the infrastructure that we're going to need to live on the surface of the moon. So incredibly amazing space opportunities, and incredibly amazing how we make Earth so much better for all of us. So you can go to our website and get more information about that. I can speak the whole hour on this because it is very passionate, especially on that one. So we also have one called CubeQuest. These are about Cubesats that will go to deep space. This competition is a $5 million competition. We're pushing knowledge on propulsion and communications back to Earth with the Cubesats. Vascular Tissue Challenge. Vascular tissue is about building tissue, the thick tissue that can one day replace the functions of organs like the pancreas or your kidney or lungs. And this in particular, it's a competition that has been framed to help companies to develop technology that could go to the space station. So we can potentially one day build tissues that could replace organs of people on Earth. So we can take your cells and build a piece of organ on the station and come back and help with people that have problems with some of the functions. So it's an amazing thing to do for the good of Earth. And then, of course, we're interested in this tissue because we can test all kinds of countermeasures of radiation and all the other bad things that could happen in space by using just tissues instead of using the humans as our guinea pigs or even guinea pigs. So this is just tissues, not even animals, which is an amazing thing. So the CO2 Conversion Challenge is a challenge about taking CO2, which it has so much on Earth, but we have even more on Mars, and converting it all the way to glucose. And as simple as that might sound, it is not if you're not using biological systems. And converting it into glucose, what it does is we can use those as nutrients for bioreactors, where we will put cells that will become farms on demand. So glucose is an amazing nutrient for our microorganisms, and we can make medicines, we can make food, we can make bioplastics, we can engineer cells to do pretty much anything as long as we have something to feed them. And with a potential incredible amount of CO2 on Mars, we can again have farms on demand that can be turned on and off as we need to. Space robotics is looking at robotic systems that can help us get the infrastructure on the surface of the moon going, all autonomously. So hopefully we'll be able to send the robotic systems to the moon and to Mars, for that matter, in the future, and they can help us get ready to house our humans in there. And then the three that we're about to open, Lunar Nutrition, which is about helping astronauts provide foods. And this one is another one that has incredible potentials for Earth, because what we're looking at is the potential of growing food in small scales that have nutrition value that can also be possibly in houses of people that might not have access to fresh food and such. So it has to be nutritious and taste good. So this one, hopefully we're going to open it next fall. So we're looking at that. Lunar Power is about to help power the moon. We're going to need not only the source of the power, so we could potentially use solar or nuclear, or it doesn't matter which is, but the important part is that we have to be able to distribute it, and we have to be able to get it to the places where they need to go so they can mine or whatever is it that they're doing on the surface of the moon. So we're opening a competition. So anybody with expertise on this one, we will be very happy to get your expertise on how to store and distribute sources of power to a place that doesn't have any at this point. And then lunar excavation, manufacturing, and construction is about helping us build that infrastructure. And excavation will be a key if we want to be able to not have to take everything we need on the surface to the surface of the moon, but use what we have on the moon as our raw material. So this is what happened as the first part of the 3D printed challenge. So a team came and told us, and they actually won the first place in the first competition. I will build a house out of ice. And so they named it the Ice House. It's a beautiful concept that NASA at that point had not seriously considered because not sure all the details, but this group this is an architectural firm from New York that had never worked in space, put this concept together. And after that, NASA has started to look at this concept. And so this is what the power of the public brings to us. And oh goodness, I got the wrong presentation. But anyway, I had a lot of other pictures of the houses on Mars that were not there because Amanda, who is our, and Amanda, you probably listened to this and laughing your head off. Amanda is our communication strategist, and she put beautiful pictures. I'll try to find them for you in a minute. The future, again, is about nutrition, power, and excavation, and building the infrastructure on the surface of the moon. So those are about to open in the next few months. So I invite you to come and learn about those. With this also, oh my goodness. It's the time flies. It's going really quick. So NASA has opportunities.
Monsi, don't worry. Please share your presentation because I think it's incredible and you're sharing a lot of really good information. If we have any questions that we don't get to at the end, we can always send them to you. And if you don't mind, if you provide the answers, we can always get them back to our community. So don't rush with your presentation, please.
Okay, I just need to find the pictures of my habitats, which is in a different. Raul, if you can check if your version, the version I sent you had I think it does have the version of the houses, and you can help me with that. Appreciate it while I finish here.
Okay, I will.
It should be the file that says Amanda, and you should have it with pictures instead of Amanda's name. And that brings up a really good thing that I wanted to share with you. I am a scientist. I work with engineers all the time, which makes it even more interesting by the fact that I'm a woman. When I started in this group 30 years ago, I was one of the few women in that group. Even more interesting was I was a Hispanic woman. There were almost, in fact, there were none that I knew at that time. And so not very many of us at NASA at that time. You can count them with probably one hand 30 years ago. And so I quickly understood that working for NASA doesn't have to be only about science and engineering. Those designs that you see come from artists and architects, and that chart that is missing in there that is so important right now to me was put together by our communication specialist. So it is as important to do the science and the engineering as it is to communicate, to the public what is it that we're doing and what is it that we need help with. And that is a job that sometimes is not appreciated, and we think is one of the most important ones for us. Having those beautiful pictures that help you understand what is it that we're doing. And that comes from communicators. And, in our group, we have artists. We're going to need nutritionists. We're going to need people that can design the clothes, that we're going to take to space. Because believe it or not, that is a complicated issue. You cannot just take everything you own in your house. If you're going for a 3-year mission, you cannot pack everything. So you have to pack very light. So the clothes has to be, light, has to be able to be washed with not very much water, has to stay clean for quite some time. Right now, the astronauts in the space station do not have showers or washing machines. So basically, they use their clothes as much as they can, and they basically throw it away. And in our future missions, that's not what we want. So the fact that we can have, people that can design clothes that could be used is as important as anything else. As I'm not going to say as the rocket, because I guess we need the rocket to get there. But as a scientist in the life support area, we always make fun that, I guess water and air is also as important as the rocket otherwise. So I guess we're going to make peace and say all of them are important. And so the nutritionist, because we need to keep our astronauts healthy. There's so many, right this second, just think for a second. I just talked to you about need of competitions in building the infrastructure of the surface of the moon. That is all about construction and digging and mining. And so, the careers of the future, they're not there yet. So you can, if you work in construction and you want to be part of the space program, there is a place for you. You can make your place in space, because we're about to basically live, start figuring out how to live away from Earth. And things like that are super important. One of the things I learned when I was at NASA in the beginning was I used to give the tours for the International Space Station, the modules, and I will go in, this is many years ago when we were starting, and I would go in and it would be colored. The first time I went in, it was like army green, because the station was put together by it had a lot to do with, this army side, because we're in an army base. And the next time I would go, it was a different color. And finally, one time I asked, what's going on here? Because every time I go in, there's a different color. Well, interior designers are as important too, because the colors dictate, how your mood feels. And so psychologists are also important for that. Yellow makes you hungry. I did not know that. So you don't paint the inside of the station yellow because you'll stay supposedly hungry. We have different colors in the station to also make sure that people understand, the astronauts understand where they are, so they know they're in different modules. So if you look at it, pictures of inside the space station, you're going to notice that each of the modules have a different color inside. So that's kind of fun to also know about. We need people that can work in electrical systems, So again, in the future, all those trades might be space trades, so something to consider. As I'm talking, I'm just leaving this chart in there for you to know. These are pathways are our students that come. They're very hard to get. Truly, they are very hard to get, but they're not impossible to get. And if you don't apply, you will not get it. So, and if you don't apply many times, you will not get it either. So do not, don't get discouraged if you don't get it at the beginning. For the most part, pathways are hired as NASA employees when they finish their schools. Then we have also Inspire. In this website, you can find all information about any kind of opportunities to work with NASA during the time you are in school. For the most part, these are college students, but they're at all levels, masters, bachelor's, masters, and PhDs. There's also grants in there, so you can take it to your teachers. There's opportunities to collaborate with NASA at that point. I just found out this week that NASA is starting to take also high school students. So we are, our center, NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, is taking 25. They're already chosen, by the way, because it's too late in the summer, but they're going to be working with us virtually, high school students. And it's not paid positions, but it's an amazing thing to put in your resume at some point. It really makes a difference, and you get to work with scientists and engineers in areas that are of interest to you. You can also ask to just, talk to a scientist or an engineer or whomever you're interested in that area, and normally they'll try to accommodate you. You can send them an email to the NASA. I think in Inspire, there's a place where you can go and make a request, and they will connect you. Then Centennial Challenges, the other ones are related to the Centennial Challenge. NASA Prize is for Centennial Challenge. So I invite you to register in our Twitter account and see all the super cool things we're doing. Amanda puts all kinds of social media for us. We have Facebook, Instagram, and then you can go to the website at nasa.gov, win it, and you can see all the cool stuff that we get to do. And then I talked to you about nasa.gov Solve. The Solve site has the other opportunities that we talked about. So please go in there and see all the cool stuff that's going on. And pretty much in any of them, you can get involved. So that's all I have, if Raul wasn't able to get the other pictures.
No, I have the same presentation that you were sharing.
Okay, so while I'm answering questions, and I'm going to close this a little bit and see if I can get the other ones and share it with you.
Okay, that'll be great. And thank you again, Monsi, for that wonderful presentation. And I don't know if there's a lot of nerds out there, STEM nerds joining us today, but you mentioned earlier we had a really great event this Saturday. You also mentioned that it's been 9 years, I think it's close to 10 years since we have sent someone to the space station from American soil. So what was your experience when you were able to be there for the last launch at the center and see that? Can you share a little bit of what was it like to be there?
So just to give you an idea of how important that was for me, I can tell you that that picture with Atlantis to me is one of the most important pictures I have of me as a NASA employee, and I had worked at NASA for 30 years. So Atlantis is my favorite shuttle, mainly because it was the last one and I had the opportunity to be so close to it before it went up. It has been especially for our group, that was sending a lot of things to space. It was a hard thing during the years that we couldn't send anything to space station. The only things we could send was the things that we can send through the Soyuz, which was very limited. So to get samples back was a problem. There's a lot of issues with the fact that the shuttle stopped flying. It stopped flying for the right reasons. We all understood that, but it was very hard for us trying to do science and engineering without the tools of having something like the space shuttle, which is amazingly big now that you look at it. And it can take a lot of, equipment up and down. And when that was no longer available, that was pretty sad in our groups. So the opportunity to start flying back cargo when Dragon and the other companies, SpaceX and the other companies, Orbital started flying was amazing for us. And now the fact that we can take astronauts up is super cool.
Do you know if there's any plans for people the way they could go and see the shuttle take off? They'll be able to do it when SpaceX has another mission where the community will be invited?
Yes, actually, you can see the flights, even if you cannot go inside the center. In fact, pretty much nobody was allowed. Even the NASA people were not allowed.
It's difficult, yeah.
So, but I think as the things start getting back to what shuttle flights were, where it was a normal thing happening every so often. You can see them from the outside. You can get tickets to go inside. Now that's more specialized, but that's something you might want to consider, Rafaela. That's something that could be arranged at some point where you guys can get a certain amount of tickets to go and see the launches. Ever since 9/11, you have to get permissions to go in, but they're not impossible to get. So I suspect at some point they're going to start letting those tickets. You don't have to pay for them. It's just but they're hard to get. And but it can be arranged. We can definitely can be arranged.
That'll be great. I know it's a great opportunity. I saw it on Saturday, so we're there counting down like probably many other people that joined the launch on Saturday. So it was incredible. It was exciting once again. I tell people, at least for me, and I hope for a lot of Americans, it's a sense of pride to be able to see that in the great accomplishments. I'm sure for you being part of the NASA team to be able to see that, it's also even a little bit more gratifying experience. So the one thing that you did, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of the kids usually ask when they have a chance to meet an astronaut, like, what do you use? And you mentioned, you have to recycle water. So how is it, do you know, what are the first reactions of some of the astronauts when they have to learn that you recycle everything, including the water? What is the normal or the first kind of like, oosh, I'm doing that?
So I did mention we started working on that since actually NASA started in 1987, I think is when they started working towards that. I joined the group shortly after that. And we didn't fly the first module of station until 1998. So that was quite so many years before, to get the astronauts. I mean, they were part of our team. We had, of course, the medics, the flight surgeons working with us too. We had one assigned to us, making sure that water is clean to drink. And it took, I'm going to say, at least 15 years to get to the point that the first astronaut actually got to drink. And they made a big celebration out in station. You can go and see it. They were toasting with the first water that they made. So I do have to say the water is much cleaner than the water that you drink every day, even though it doesn't sound like it. It is incredibly clean. The standards that we have to follow, the requirements that we have are so strict. That water is so clean that tastes like nothing. I mean, like it's just tastes like the metal that it goes through. So it is. We actually, and the Russians actually add salts and other stuff to make it a little bit more palatable to them because it is so clean.
So clean. Well, it's incredible. So it's good to hear that they had a celebration instead of saying, "Oh, I don't want to drink that." But we have a question from Dallas, and they want to know, when will people be able to travel into space?
Well, that's a cool question because what I heard from SpaceX in the launch back on Saturday was that I think there'll be 4 paid tourists going up. I think next year is when they're planning. So I truly don't know if they're going to go all the way to station or they're just going to go to space. But SpaceX is going to be to start, taking people up there. Where that up there is, I'm not sure because something funny have happened throughout the time that I have worked at NASA. Well, not funny, I think it's amazing, but something that you would never imagine. I went to give a talk not long ago, and somebody asked me, I'm thinking about, I do real estate. I'm thinking about starting to think about doing real estate for Mars. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I had laughed so hard before. And now I'm not going to laugh at all because I remember when Bigelow said he wanted to put a hotel in low Earth orbit, which is where the station is, in low Earth orbit. And everybody was like, yeah, whatever. Well, I don't think that's too far away. At some point in our lifetime, there will be a hotel up there, especially if there's a vehicle that can take us there. So, whatever it is, these are exciting times.
It makes me think. I'm sure the cost is going to be a little bit more than what some of us thought at the beginning. But thinking about that, to have it in space, and I guess that's the awesome thing about working for an agency like NASA, that you start imagining and really have creativity and innovation. But think of space, the view that you're going to have if you have a hotel in space, the wonderful view you're going to have. You're really going to want to have a room with a view to be able to come and look back at Earth, and so it's got to be amazing to be able to think all that as a possibility. Like you said, not to laugh at that idea, but to know that it might not be too far into the distance for us to be able to see that. But with that, I wanted to ask you, so I know that you're at Marshall. We had last month, we had Jessica Padilla from Johnson, but where other locations does NASA have? Let's say I live in California or in Arizona. Is there a place that I could go to if I don't want to go too far away from home?
So we have 2 bases in California and JPL, which is also, JPL is in Pasadena. We have Ames in San Jose, and we have, Armstrong, also in California. Then we have Goddard in Maryland, and we have Cleveland. We have Glenn Research Center. Of course, everybody knows Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Then not many people know Marshall Space Flight Center, which actually Dr. Werner von Braun came and like I said, he built the rockets that took us to the moon. So there's a lot of pride in this city about the fact that was designed and they were built here. Space station modules were also built here, by the way, and not a lot of people know that. So that was another opportunity for us to see what those station cans, because they're literally cans, were built. So we have 10 NASA centers overall in the U.S., and so the majority are where I just mentioned: California, Ohio, Maryland. We have Washington D.C., our headquarters, and then we have so 10 centers altogether.
Okay. So the other thing that I have another question that came in that says, do you or NASA employees, do they get to travel?
So it depends what you're doing. It so happened that for the job I do, I travel. When we were traveling, literally I was traveling all the time because I work with the public. I was gone sometimes 2-3 weeks a month. And so basically I had a rotating suitcase, came in and left. But that's not necessarily usual for us NASA employees. So it depends what you're doing and what center you're working. I had the opportunity to go to all the NASA centers as part of what I do, but some people just work with Houston or Kennedy or, depending what you're doing. So yes, there's some traveling and sometimes international travel too, because we have amazing international partners. So yes, we have the opportunity to travel.
So you had experience to learn how to pack. So if you happen to be chosen to go to Mars, you would know exactly what to pack and how light to pack on that travel.
Oh, absolutely not. It would be horrible. Everybody makes fun of my suitcase. It doesn't matter if I'm going 1 day or 10 days, it's the same. So no, that's not funny.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you personally, I know you mentioned earlier about your mentor at Berkeley that really kind of transformed your change. How important is it for a student, for a young person starting their professional career to find a mentor?
So I'm going to tell you my experience with how this mentor came about. And just to explain to you, sometimes we sell ourselves short, sometimes. So his name is Dr. Terry Hazen, and I adore him, and I still get him and I are still connected, by the way. After all these years, he's that special to me. And so when I started taking microbiology, I loved the class, and I went to him and I said, I would love to work in your laboratory. And he told me, let's just wait until you finish the class, right? Of course, he wanted to know how good I was before he took me as a person in his lab. And so the class finished and he never came and talked to me, And so, never. I saw him like maybe like a month after the class was finished, after the semester had finished. I was doing tours for the university, had an open house, and I was one of the volunteers taking the people around. And so happened that I see him, and he looked at me and he said, how come you have never come to talk to me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought you said you were supposed to come and tell me. And he goes like, no, you're supposed to come and see me. And so big lesson in life. Don't assume that if somebody doesn't follow up that they're waiting for you. They probably are waiting for you to go and tell them how badly you want that job, or how badly you want them to be your mentor. That opened the doors. If that opportunity had not happened, I would not be where I am right now. A mentor is that important. A mentor is and he was mean. Oh my gosh, he was mean. I mean, he pushed us. He only got a few students and he pushed us. I hated his guts for a while. He would go and take us out of class like a father, like, you didn't do this, that, and that, and that, and that, and we're like, oh yes, I'm so sorry, We learned so much from him. He really had our best interest at heart, and he made us make presentations in English when we barely spoke English, and in front of people that, world-renowned microbiologists, and he would say, here's my student, he's going to tell you about da-da-da-da, and you're like, no! You know how much somebody that believes in you makes you feel like you can change the world. That's what he did for me. And so find that person, not the one that always tells you you're doing right, but the one that really challenges you and wants you to do better all the time. Because you're going to hate them in the beginning, but you are going to adore them forever. They're going to be, and he was my first mentor, really. But throughout my career, I have had, something that I like to do is to watch who has behaviors that I really admire, And I have no problems going and say, hey, I really like how you do nada nada. Would you, would you mind working with me and or whatever? And some of them are more formal. Some of them are just the fact that you can send an email and say, what do you think? So different people have different ways of helping, but I haven't, you're going to find maybe one or two that might not say yes, but hey, that's life. It's about that.
Yeah, no, and that's true. And thanks for sharing that, because I think sometimes we, don't ask the question, would you want to be, or we get back to the person because we reject ourselves without waiting. So, somebody a few weeks ago said, Rafaela, you have no problem asking. And I'm like, what do I have to lose? All they can say is no.
That's right.
If you don't ask, you're never going to know if that person was going to be willing to help you, willing to mentor you, willing to give you the advice that you needed just to make that step or achieve the goal that you're after. So I agree with you. The best thing you can do is take a chance and do that. We also talked about, the location. So I have a question here. If this person is interested, in Goddard, what kind of research or, mission does Goddard have? What do they do at Goddard?
So different centers have different missions. I'm very familiar with the one at Marshall, right? Of course, and Kennedy and Johnson and Ames. Goddard is one of the ones that I'm not as familiar, but I know they do a lot of, oh goodness gracious, science missions, and a lot of more to do with telescopes and
planetary kind of exploration, isn't it more in that area?
Yes, and so those are the people I do know from there and have interacted with from Goddard. But like I said, Goddard is one of the centers because I'm working more human missions.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working in the HEO Directorate, which is where I come from, which means humans. Goddard is not the center that I interacted the most with. So, but it's more science. Although all the centers have a little bit of everything, they all have a specialty that makes them, that allows them to, show the best in the different areas. So, so Goddard is the one I know the least, but I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right, because I know I was going to say I'll make it easy on you this time, and that wasn't my question. Somebody submitted, but I know you have a really close friend at Glenn.
Yes.
That might be a little bit easier to explain to somebody where Glenn is and what do they do there.
So the Glenn Research Center is actually in Ohio, in Cleveland, Ohio, and they're amazing director. And talk about somebody that have come a long way, a long, long way. She's from Puerto Rico. It has not been an easy thing for her. I met her many years ago and have seen her growing as a employee and as a manager, and finally as the highest position at a center. And which reminds me to tell you guys, when you see these managers at NASA and you think, oh my gosh, everything has been perfect for you to get to that point. Not at all. You have no clue how many times we have fallen, like big time fallen, and had to keep, put ourselves back up, dust ourselves, and continue, okay, well, that did not work the way I expected, but let's just try it again. And so talk about that for all of us. And so she, Marla Perez Davis, she's an amazing role model. One of the few Hispanics I met, her and Olga, who also work at Glenn, were the two people that I stuck, as much as I could, because there were not many of us out there. And so Glenn Research Center has a lot of work in the power side. They are our partners on this challenge on to make the moon have power distribution and storage. So batteries, they do a lot of aerospace. The airplanes part of the agency, because NASA has airplanes too. And so that Glenn is our lead on that. Believe it or not, they do have some life support in there too, and they have experts on dust and on the moon, and it's a very diverse center. It's a small center, but very diverse too.
That's great. And that's really good because even though you're different centers, you get to interact with people at different centers and become friends, have that relationship, not only with people at your center, but the other centers as well.
Yes, and there's all the centers have their own culture, believe it or not, and they are all different. So Ames is an amazing place to go, and just by going to the Ames Research Center in California in San Jose, the vibes are different. It's just, you see a lot of people in Bermudas and shorts, and and so the centers are different. They have they have a lot of life support down there too. It's just incredible. All the centers have a lot of jewels and nuggets of amazing stuff going on.
We talked a little bit about high school students, college students. Let's say you have younger students. I know in the past, I believe you had a space camp right outside of the center. I know right now this is a hard time for us to travel, but will there be plans for the space camp to continue when we're able to travel for students to take that opportunity?
Absolutely, and not only that, the space centers, the museums are associated with the space centers in Kennedy, a space center in Florida, Houston, even Cleveland, Marshall. They all have online. Right now, you can benefit of a lot of online educational material for all ages. So you might want to look at the centers and see what is in there for the students, because there's a lot, and even for young age.
Okay. Well, Monsi, we're coming to the end of our presentation today. So if you had some words of wisdom or something you want to share with the students or the individuals joining us today, what would your advice be for them?
I would like to tell you that this has not been easy. It has been very fulfilling, and I love it. I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do. So even if you don't understand what the future of that passion is going to be, use that. That's what's going to help you. Go to school and stay in an area that you really feel a passion for, and understand that the road is not going to be easy. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, here you go. Here's the perfect job. Heck, really, space microbiology didn't even exist when I started at NASA. So it became something as of a degree later on. So the jobs of the future are not written right now. So you get to do, you get to write, you have the opportunity to make those right now. Just remember that. And do also remember that sometimes you're going to have to take uncomfortable, when I took the first job at NASA, I had two opportunities, one to work in the lab and one to work in a desk with engineers, right? So which one I was going to go with? The one in the lab, because that's what I knew and I loved. And the one in with the engineers was like, oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure I can do that. Remember always, so happened the one in the lab didn't open on time. And actually after that, it never opened. But I took the one that I wasn't feeling as competent, and I ended up absolutely loving it and understanding that I belonged there as much as anybody else belonged in there. So it was hard. I had to study hard. I had to, work hard, but it was so worth it. So take a risk, go out there and take a risk. And perhaps the first job is not going to be it, but it opens the door for you to get to where you want to go. So don't expect somebody to give you the perfect job in the beginning. Just take a risk. Truly, it's worth it.
Take that challenge and see what opens up in front of you. So Monsi, thank you again so much for sharing your story, for sharing this wonderful information about NASA. And again, it's incredible, challenging times, but exciting because we've returned to space from American soil. So hopefully we'll see a lot more of that. And there's an opportunity for some of us to be able to go to Florida and see one of those launches. And with that,
and you can see on TV now when they're drinking water and where they're moving around, you're going to see, oh my gosh, so just keep an eye of what's happening. There's a lot of things that happen that they don't talk about.
Yeah, now we can have a little bit more critical eye on the stuff that's happening because you've shared some good information with us. So thank you again. And with that, we turn it over to Raul.
Yes, and thank you, Monsi. Thank you, Rafaela. That was an awesome presentation. I like the PowerPoint and every aspect that you share about your experience and everything. Thinking about the hotel in space. Probably if I get a room there, it might have a view to the parking lot. But anyway.
The parking lot will be the whatever rocket. That would be cool anyway.
I know, but hey, that's what happened to me when I asked for ocean view. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us.